welcome in, race fans, to this episode of Through the Gears, presented by Front Stretch. I'm your host, Tino Pattigno, and I couldn't be more excited to be back talking NASCAR betting action for you guys as we prepare for Richmond Raceway this weekend. It's going to be a night race on Easter Sunday, so hopefully the Easter Bunny can bring us a few winning tickets in this one. We break down everything that happened at COTA last week when they were turning left and right in that one, and we saw William Byron take home the victory for us as well. We saw him at 10-1 earlier in the week, so that was great value, and I hope you guys all cashed on that one. We have a special guest joining us for this episode of Through the Gear to help us preview some of the best bets and odds on the board for Richmond. In this one, it's going to be Michael Palmer. Michael is one of the best NASCAR fans I know. His presence is known at the track, and he's just one of the best personalities that I have been around in the NASCAR industry. So we're going to have him on to discuss some of the NASCAR best bets as he's getting more involved into the NASCAR betting action. If you don't follow him already, you can do so by following him on Twitter at Mikey2082 there. So be sure to do so as Mike will be joining us here just in a second. But then before we get into the show, I got to give a special shout out to my guys on the YouTube. First up, it's going to be Kyle B8. Thank you so much, Kyle, for commenting on the last Through the Gears episode. I really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. And also Donald Veal 8135, who dropped down some of his picks on who he thinks was going to win the race in that race for that weekend there at COTA. So if you guys are tuning in right now, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop a comment down below and be sure to get back to you or shout you out on the next show there and acknowledge you guys and all that you do for our channel here at Front Stretch. So appreciate you guys there. And without further ado, let's go through the gears. Joining us now as we go through the gears to break down everything we saw at COTA, preview the Richmond race this weekend, is Michael Palmer, one of the best NASCAR fans I've met, and getting into the NASCAR gambling side as well. Michael, thanks for joining us here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I follow all your work on social. It's great following you, and it's just even greater to be in part of this NASCAR gambling thing. I love it. It's fun.
It's fun, and it's even better when we win. Michael, I saw you've been on a little hot streak lately. COTA, how did that race go for you? Did you pick up any winners there?
COTA. Oh, let me tell you, COTA. I mean, Byron was right in front of our eyes the whole time. So focused on Gibbs and Reddick. I'm just so thankful that they have in-race picks. Because once I started seeing that race play out, I was like, I can't believe I missed this. He was fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying. He was literally just running away with the race. I mean, every time that they made fuel strategy stops, he was right there. I mean, they kept up with it. Everybody, I think, was Gibbs and Reddick. So thankfully, like I said, they had in-race picks, was able to make a little bet, salvage the weekend. So it ended up working out pretty good.
Let's go. Yeah, and that's something that people have to take advantage on, right? Like if there is a driver dominant, and we see that, like we saw with Willie B, and I mean for him and Larson too, if they maybe don't show it that much in qualifying, I mean he did win the pole and stuff like that, but there's been times where maybe I hold off on them, their values maybe not where I like it, and then they go off, dominate stage one. That's what the great thing is about live betting. So happy we were able to come away winners there. And when you look ahead to Richmond here, is there any sort of betting strategies, and could just be in general, that you have when you go focusing on NASCAR betting and things like that? Is there any strategies you consider just heading into the weekends to try to, make money where you can, where other people may not be as knowing of this information if they don't follow NASCAR that much?
Yeah, I think Richmond is a track that I've been there 4 or 5 times. It's a great track. I'm waiting for its revival. I think that it was so historic. It's kind of went down the racing a little last couple of years, but I see it as like a track that it could definitely be, revived. My advice with Richmond is that when you're going to look at the bets, look at past winners. I think that's a track where it's going to be tire management. I think you got to be perfect on pit road. You can't have any penalties, because you're definitely going to lose at least 2 laps on that. And I'm going to say, like, if you look at your past winners in Richmond, I mean, it's always the best. I mean, it's guys, like I said, it's going to be those guys like your Hamlins, your Truexes, Kyle Busch. Don't ever factor out Kyle Busch. I mean, he's still there. But later on, I'll give you my picks. But, yeah, when you go look at Richmond, that's what I would say.
Definitely. No, I'm glad you mentioned about being the best. And I think the veteran drivers will prevail at this track this weekend and have prevailed there at the past. Like you mentioned, Denny's got a few wins here. MTJ has 3 wins here. And, we see how dominant Byron and Larson have been at this track as well. There have been some upsets. The last Richmond race, Chris Buescher winning. He was 40-1 at the time. So we could get into that as well a little bit later on. One thing I also want to note with the Richmond specifically, this track's comparable to that of Phoenix and New Hampshire Motor Speedway. So that was something that went into some of my prep, was taking a look at some of the results there and seeing what drivers really stood out to me at those tracks. And it was great we already have Phoenix to look off of from this year, and especially with that, the new Toyota bodies. Was that something that you were a little bit surprised about seeing, especially at Phoenix, where they haven't been dominant at that track at all, and they go out and Tyler Reddick leads that, Christopher Bell wins the race as well?
No, I wasn't surprised at all, actually. I think that Toyota is there. I think that maybe it took them a few races to get where they need to be, but you can never count Toyota out. They're always going to be there. I mean, they great program. They have great drivers. Toyota won't ever let themselves be out either. That's one thing that I've noticed about them. I did do a lot of prep when I did look at the prep work for this. I did look back at Phoenix, and I was, there was a couple drivers that stood out to me that was like, but the one thing about Bell is he wins Phoenix. I think he's gonna start ripping wins off like crazy. Serious championship contender this year too.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Christopher Bell as well, because I think, to me, when I look at JGR, yes, Denny is, one of the faces of the sport. Truex Jr., proven champion as well. Ty Gibbs on the rise. But out of those 4 drivers, to me, I think right now Christopher Bell is the top dog and will continue to be sort of the leader at that camp, whether it's on-track performance or off. I just think Christopher Bell, it's his time with how consistent he's been in making it to the championship 4 and how clutch he's been at doing that as well. And we saw him almost win at Coda too. He was right there racing against William Byron. So I think, heading into this one, I mean, does anyone have more momentum than Christopher Bell right now, aside from maybe the William Byrons of the world?
I think that Christopher Bell is he's definitely ready to take over JGR. I think that, you're going to have Truex probably retiring soon. Not sure what his plans are. I know he signed the 1-year extension into this year. Denny's got 23 XI. I mean, so I would love to see Denny get a championship too before he goes away. But I think kind of when he gets that, he's going to go focus on his race team that he owns with Michael Jordan. And I think that Christopher Bell is going to be the man at JGR. But you got to look at Ty. Ty is a talent though, but don't. I mean, I would say that's going to be great because that's going to when Christopher takes over and Martin and Denny are gone, you're going to look at it's going to be like Denny and Kyle were at the time of JGR's dominating. It's going to be Christopher and Ty. Those guys are going to take. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch too. So.
Ty Gibbs is already exciting me so far this season. I had on my notes here, he's probably, in my opinion right now, Ty Gibbs is the most improved driver in the class of the field right now. The finishes he's had the last 5 races, and he's just been running up front for sure.
Absolutely. He is really good. I mean, the funny thing with the Bristol race was I was like, you know what? He's so fast, but a veteran driver is going to win just because of tire management. And look at the top 3. They were veterans. Yep. I mean, long-time veterans of the sport too. But no, Ty, I feel when Ty gets when he gets his first Cup win, he is going to just rattle off tons of them. It's just getting over that hill. You just got to do that.
Yeah, and he's a versatile driver. He showed speed at Bristol, like you mentioned, the short track there, and then we go to Coda, and he looks to be in contention, or at least he would finish inside the top 3. So, and then obviously anyone can win a super speedway. So I feel like Ty Gibbs has the skill set. So, like you said, when he does get that one to break off and ultimately get some wins. And now when we take a look at the odds for what we have at Richmond this weekend, this is an exciting time because we talk about Ty Gibbs and we see him as one of the favorites here. Now, using DraftKings specifically, obviously you guys tuning in right now can shop around for some higher value out there, but I like to stick with DraftKings. They're the official sports book of NASCAR. And looking at our odds breakdown, we see Denny Hamlin, the favorite, at plus 425, alongside Christopher Bell, same value as well. Martin Truex Jr. at plus 600, Ty Gibbs at plus 850. And honestly, I didn't even realize we were talking about Toyotas and JGR's dominance, and here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that at the favorites. Is there any? So Yeah, and I guess speaking off of that, I think to me, like just not even giving any picks out yet either. Just in terms of what I'm seeing on the board right now, I think this makes sense, right? Do these odds make sense to you? I think Denny Hamlin, the way he's dominated at this track, Christopher Bell would be the only one where I kind of would want more value for him just because he hasn't won at Richmond yet. But I think the win at Phoenix really makes him be the favorite next to Denny Hamlin at plus 425, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think so too. Ty Gibbs is like, 850 up. Here's the thing about Christopher Bell. So when I was doing my homework, I'm like, I like what I saw. I like his recent results. I mean, he has, other than last summer, I think he just hit the setup wrong or something. He hasn't finished outside the top 5 at JGR, I think, since he's got there. Here's the thing though. Kyle Busch said he's going to pay him back. So you have 2 tracks coming up, right? Richmond and then Martinsville, right? So where does the payback happen at? Do you want to put your money on Christopher Bell when this is an easy track to pay someone back at? Kyle's good here. He's going to be hungry for that win. So that's a factor that I was actually thinking when I was placing my bets. When's that going to happen? Does it happen?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But, short track racing, you're going to put a bumper to somebody when you own one.
And we've seen him do it before, right? I think Kyle Busch made the most enemies when he spun out Dale Jr. at Richmond.
So does DraftKings factor that in? You know what I mean? No, I would like, if I'm picking a winner, I would like a little bit more value to that one right there. But essentially that's just like a little thing that, I think it's fun, to figure out when that payback is coming. So that's something that, I did think about. But yeah, definitely I would want more value though.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because it just adds another factor into the amount of many different things that goes into NASCAR betting. It is not only so hard to win the races for these drivers, but for us as bettors. Like, I just feel like in terms of the amount of things people ask me, why is there so much value on the board? Or, how hard is it to win a race, in terms of when you bet on it? And to me, I say it's probably the hardest sport to bet on because you have to deal with strategy, late race cautions, payback from Kyle Busch, and everything that goes in between. You can have a blown front tire, any sort of, overtime, and all the different factors that go into it. And, I think that's one of the biggest things when I'm betting on NASCAR is you have to be aware, it's awesome. And the storylines between Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch, it's fun to have those in general, but the fact that it is definitely important to be aware of them in terms of the betting side of things, because like you said, rubbing is racing. I think they could get into some contact at Richmond or Martin. If Kyle really wants to, he will go out and wreck Christopher Bell this weekend.
He will. I mean, he's hungry for that win. I mean, he hasn't won at Richmond in a while. Obviously switching teams over to a Chevy from a Toyota. And another factor is like, you look at this weekend, right? You have a sponsored race. Toyota is sponsoring the race, the manufacturer. So Toyota's stepping up their game. They're going to bring their best to the game. Now, Kyle Busch used to drive for a Toyota. Does he want to play spoiler? Heck yeah, he does. He wants to get up there, get that win, and he wants to also do it in a Chevy. So there you go.
I think the one thing I want to ask you there about Kyle Busch, though, because I agree. I think if anyone can outperform their equipment, it is Kyle Busch. And anyone that benefits from having practice and qualifying, it is also Kyle Busch. But right now, the current state of RCR hasn't led me to believe that their team is really up there in terms of the other Chevy performers, they definitely have not been able to contend with Toyota. And I think Toyota right now is top of the charts in terms of overall speed. But what do you think about RCR specifically? Austin Dillon and his capability of winning races is pretty low. And the speed that they're bringing into the racetrack makes it even harder for them. And then not to mention Kyle Busch's pit crew has not been able to help him in any situation this season.
It's hard with RCR. It's there. I mean, but they just don't. They're not putting the pieces together. I mean, they have what it takes. It's just like, when are you guys going to put the pieces? And I think it's of all of the teammates. It's like you have like JGR. They're 4: Denny, Martin, Christopher, and Ty. When you have Hendrick Motorsports, you have your 4: Alex, Chase, Kyle, and William. When you look at teams, they're kind of like bunch them. They bring them up. I think there's like a huge line right down the middle of Kyle and Austin. You wouldn't know their teammates. They don't talk about them a lot. It's Kyle Busch. Well, then there's Austin Dillon, bad luck, this year, and hasn't cracked the top 15 this year. So it's like, okay, it's just the way that it's presented. It's almost like you wouldn't know their teammates. Like I've seen a poster of them two together. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. They are teammates, So it's like this. It's hard. I mean, it's frustrating as a bettor. It's frustrating as, you know, I can't imagine. I like RCR. I love them. I do. I think they're a great organization. But I can't imagine, some of the frustrations that got to be going on there.
Definitely. And I think that's, as a bettor, when we look into these races and try to provide insight for other people and just do our own homework and figure out the stats for the race, RCR's inconsistency from week to week is something where I know Kyle Busch is going to run inside the top 10, but if he doesn't even have the car to do so, it's just going to make it that much harder for him to be able to move up the field and things like that. There has been times when RCR has provided with a good car for him. We saw the first race he won at Auto Club last year.
Oh, yeah.
He had a good enough car, and then he was able to go out and win that race in entertaining fashion, in Kyle Busch fashion, leading laps and everything like that. But in terms of what I've been seeing this season, I think it's just been an uphill battle for him. And these races are already so hard to win. We don't want any other outside factors or inside factors for that team to prevent him from doing so. To me,
No.
before even making any picks, I just feel like he needs to prove it to me in order for me to bet on him. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I agree. I would not bet on him this weekend as a winner. No. I mean, I was surprised at his odds, though. I mean, his odds were like 1,500. So, I mean, it was like, okay. But then I did look back at his finishes, and I was like, oh, wow. He finished 14 in the spring race last year at Richmond. And I was like, that's not bad. If you switch manufacturers, he's there. But it's very on Kyle Busch like at Richmond. But then I saw in the summer race, he finished third. I'm like, no, that's more like Kyle Busch. So it's like, what does he have? I mean, like you said, if anyone's going to outperform his car, it's going to be Kyle Busch. So, but no, I would not bet him to win. That's not my bet.
Well, let's get into who you would bet on to win then for our outright winners portion of this one. Whether it's a favorite, long shot, underdog. We'll start with, just overall, who's your favorite guy that you think is going to go out there and get the win for us this weekend?
So Denny is obviously Mr. Richmond, right? I mean, he's like, but when I was doing my preparation for this, I mean, there was one guy that actually stood out to me more than Denny, and that was Truex Jr. I mean, the guy is just, I was looking back at the last 10 races he's been there. I mean, he has finishes of 3 wins. His worst finish was last spring, which was 11. Okay. Take that out, and he hasn't finished outside the last 10 races I looked at. He has never finished outside the top 10. He's got like 7 top 5s. He's got 3 wins. Now, here's the thing about Truex, though. He kind of lays back a little, like I looked at his last 4 finishes. He was like 7th at Vegas, a couple other races, but it was like 7, 7, 2, and that 2 at Bristol. And then Coda, he gets in an early wreck, has some problems, still finishes like 10th, right? That's when Truex is dangerous, because I wouldn't be surprised to see him go out there and just surprise and steal a win. He's also leading the points. So he's due for that win. So he's going to be my pick this weekend. I like the odds at plus 600. Denny had like a little bit more money for it, but they're not going to give that. But I saw the plus 600 with Martin. I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to pick. I mean, I was there to race when he won at Richmond in 2019. It was his first win. Plus, this is like one of his 8 home tracks or something like that too. So it's he's got that's crazy. But no, he's my pick. His statistics are, and like I said, when you make your picks, statistics don't lie. You need to make your picks based on what the stats show. You also need to make your picks based on your gut instinct and what your heart shows. So that's my pick for the weekend.
No, I love it. And especially going off of what the stats do show for Martin Truex Jr. In the last 10 races, he's led almost 800 laps there, has the second best average finish at this track in the last 6 races. He has 3 wins here, which all came at night. So that's something I want to talk about too. It is a night race. Oh, man. So how much do you factor that in to your betting, or just overall what you think this race is going to be like in general, with it being at night for this one?
See, when I look at Richmond, I see Richmond as only a night race. I mean, when I was younger, that's when I went to those night races. I went to a race, and I think it was like 2017 when they started running. It didn't have the same feel. And then I went back in 2019. It was night race. I was like, oh, this is great. I love it. So when they announced this, that this was going to be a night race, I was excited for it. I was like, and it does factor in. I mean, that's a great point that you made about him winning 3 times a night. That's awesome. I mean, that's huge. That makes me more confident in my bet.
And I think it anything in terms of outside factors that can come in and help a driver benefit throughout a race, I think the day to night is a huge factor for some of these drivers, and especially MTJ. I mean, there will be more grip on the racetrack. I think, in terms of the summer race we had at Richmond, it was a little bit of a weird one, right? Because it was long green flag runs, slick racetrack. No, everyone kind of just trying to stretch out their fuel, and we saw them. Some of the forwards up top there, but I think when we look at the spring race, really, I think that was better example of what Richmond really is. A little bit more cautions in that one, and then maybe some strategy comes into play. But the front runners that were there, it was Truex Jr., it was William Byron, it was Christopher Bell. All of the drivers we've mentioned already, and to me, I'm all in on Truex Jr. for this weekend as well. When we even look at the tracks that are similar to Richmond, like we mentioned, Phoenix, New Hampshire. Well, okay, who won at New Hampshire last year? Truex Jr. He started second, led 254 laps, swept all the stages. If he has I'm betting on Truex Jr. now too, like right today, early in the week, because if I don't, I feel like he'll go out and practice, have a great car, qualify well, maybe top 3, top 5. This plus 600 number could be cut in half. Is that something you think about as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I looked at that plus 600 where his statistics were, and I was like, that's a steal. Like, give me that.
And do you have any more picks for us? I know I have about 3 to 4 winners that I'm looking at. Truex Jr. was one of them. Who else you got for us here?
I mean, obviously, you got to go Denny. Denny is just, he's great. Short track, flat track. He's just really good, but don't want to waste a lot of time because I think a lot of people are going to pick Denny. Christopher Bell had great statistics there. But, like I said, if you're going for your – you want to make some money. I mean, look at Chris Busch. He's plus 1,100. Won last year. He's consistently good. Even in the spring race last year, he was having a great race until he had a loose wheel, which then unfortunately took him out. Third, I think, in 2022 in the summer race, consistently better. The one that stuck out to me, and this one was huge, was Joey Logano at plus 2,000. And this is the reason why. He is consistent there. I mean, he has like 7 of the last 10 races. He's in top 10. He's got 5 of the last 10 in top 5. He's got momentum coming off Coda. I mean, he drove from 35th to 11th. He's a 2-time champion. At some point, he's got to do well. I mean, so if you really want to make some buck, go for that. I mean, I was surprised to see that plus 2,000 right there. So.
Yeah, I think the value is there for Joey. Like maybe he hasn't been, that consistent this year. It's definitely been an off year for him. Coda's probably one of the best finishes he's had this entire season. But if anyone can turn it around quickly, it would be the 22 because they are, like you said, proven champions, veteran driver. And at this track for that value specifically too, I think that's a good price there where, okay, maybe we're not expecting him to go out and win like we are the Toyotas and the favorites there. But Joey is definitely someone who I know can get it done. I like a driver who's next to him, Ross Chastain, for the same value at plus 2,000. Some stats for Ross here, not the best. Like on paper, when I was writing everything out. I was like, oh, do I like Ross here? And I want to let you know, see what you think. So, okay, 1 top 10 in the last 4 races, but it was a 3rd place finish.
Right.
He has 96 laps led here, and he has run inside the top 5 within the first 2 stages in 3 of the last 4 races. So he's finished 1st, 3rd, 5th, I've seen, and things of that nature. But he hasn't been able to close the deal. He has, 18th, 19th place finishes in the races where he hasn't finished inside the top 10. Is Ross a driver that you could see potentially going out and getting a win here?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a flatter track. Like you say, comparison, you're going to compare it to Phoenix. Ross Chastain won the November finale in Phoenix. So, yeah, I think that's at a plus 2,000. I don't think you can go wrong there. I don't. I mean, I know that his finishes don't show where he's running there, too. He's had some bad luck. He's had some untimely cautions. That's racing, man. That just happens. So if you do your homework and you look at things, you don't always necessarily look at, sometimes just the finishes. We'll go back and look at what's the trends in the race, things like that. And we need to go back and like I said, 96 laps led, flat track Phoenix. He is a good bet. And he is a good value pick, too.
Yeah, right. There we go. All right, I'm glad. Yeah. And I feel like a night race too for Ross kind of plays into his hands. I could just kind of see that. He won at Nashville at night race 2 last year. So just something to consider. And now moving forward, any other, maybe underdog plays or top value picks you see on the board here?
The one that We'll go back just a second. Larson at plus 900 was pretty good considering, he's got an average finish of third in the next gen in the spring race. He won this race last year, but it's not always his best track. He's openly admitted it. But the one that I was like, whoa, was Alex Bowman at plus 5,000.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, really? Okay, even if you're not going to bet him as a winner, at least put him as a top 3 at plus 1,100 or even a top 5 at plus 550. That you're going to he's quietly good there, and he is on a streak too. I mean, he has done well. I mean, look at Bristol, Coda. He's coming up. I mean, he's starting to get it together. I like that. That was a crazy opening, and that could easily be cut in half if he goes out and practices and qualifies well.
100%. I wrote the same thing down. Probably the most closing line value on the board for any driver would be for Alex Bowman.
Oh, I had to double check that. I couldn't believe that was plus. It was like whoa, but no.
Yeah,
that one
50-1 for him, and he's won at this track before. Now, granted, it was before the next gen car, but still, I mean, he knows how to get the job done at this racetrack. And I think 3 top 10s in the last 6 races here, and everything considered, for Alex Bowman at this track. I think last week as well, he was 25-1 to win at Coda, and that was statistically, like you said, one of his better tracks. And I'm like, okay, I'm throwing something on Alex Bowman just because of that number being crazy. And he finishes inside the top 5, right? So, I mean, right now, and second, with laps winding down, he got passed, but he was right there close to William Byron there at the end. So here at Richmond, 50-1 for Bowman. I saw him 55-1 earlier. This is going down. Everyone, I hope you get your bets in now for guys like Bowman and Truex, who the value is there now, but once they practice and qualify, I mean, for Bowman, it has to go unless he goes out and just qualifies 20th or 30th. I can't see this number. And even when he's done so, he's still able to drive through the field and get a good finish. I think him for a top 10 as well could be good on the board for this one.
Absolutely. I would definitely put that down. I mean, even if you want to bet $2 or something like that, do it. That's what you can't lose.
I think that's the perfect segue to our prop bets topic here now. And that's the first thing I'm clicking on as I go through and look at the top. Yeah, Alex Bowman for a top 10 at Richmond Raceway this weekend is plus 150 on DraftKings right now. To me, I think that's a great number. And a driver I like next to him too, just right off the top of my head, just by looking at the board here, is Bubba Wallace at plus 130. Now, that one's a little more, I like Alex Bowman way more than Bubba Wallace at this track. But in terms of the Toyota speed, I think, Bubba may have a better shot at getting this, and at plus money. Is that something you would consider here?
I think you got to consider this with Bubba. I think if you look at him in the summer race last year, did real well. He was, and it's not a track that you really think Bubba Wallace. But here's the thing that I factor in. He runs for 23XI. Who owns 23XI? Denny Hamlin. He's going to have a similar setup as Hamlin. Who's the king of Richmond? Hamlin. So, yes, I like that. I do like that a lot, actually. So,
and a plus money too. We were looking at Ross is minus 135. Reddick, Bubba's teammate, is minus 175. Who both drivers haven't really had the results to really, I think, give them their number. That's the number that DraftKings probably looks at because of their name and past finishes this season. Is there any other prop bets that you're looking at? Some of the ones that you like the most going into this one?
I'm looking under the prop bets. If there's one that I'm going to say that I thought was weird, I'm looking under the driver props, right? They have Austin Dillon and Josh Berry. Now, here's the thing we were talking earlier about Austin Dillon, right? I'm actually going to put money down on that one. The reason being is he's not ran bad here. I mean, I know Josh Berry last year came second. He's a local short track racer, but I looked at some of Austin Dillon stuff, and I'm like, you know what? He's been pretty fast. He's got some decent finishes. I'm just going to put some money down on that one just because it's one that I see. I also look at some of the driver props. I look at Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott. Yeah, give me Bowman. He's the underdog against Elliott. What are they doing? Give me Bowman. I'll take that. Chase Elliott, it's not his best track. He has come out and said when it was the second race of the playoffs, we just need to get through Richmond. We need to get points at Richmond. But at the same time, it's okay, now I know that going in there, what I'm going to do. So those are two that I looked at the board right there for there. But those were the ones on there that I liked a lot.
Now, one thing that I sort of resonated with me when you were talking about the Austin Dillon matchup against Josh Berry. I like that move there because I think Austin, if he is going to turn things around this season, it would hopefully come at this track, right? With Kyle Busch being one of the other kings of Richmond, like you mentioned how Denny is with 2311. I think that mindset could hopefully play well for RCR. But Josh Berry, who's matched up against Austin Dillon, he's plus 225 for a top 10 in this one. He finished second in this race last season, but as I was watching things back, it's not like he was racing inside the top 5 the whole day. A little bit of strategy played into his hands, but it is Josh Berry who surprised us at Bristol by being one of the faster cars. Now, the tire fall off came into play with that race. With this being a short track, do you think Josh Berry can crack the top 10 at plus 225 here?
I don't know about a top 10. I don't. I mean, but here's the thing. I could really end up eating my words on this. This is really hard, Josh Berry, okay? If Josh Berry is going to catch fire, it's going to be at a track like this. He's a known short track racer. He's known for these types of tracks. But the thing is like SHR is struggling, I was looking at him in Phoenix. He crashed in the practice. I look at the equipment he's in. I mean, when he ran at Richmond, he was in junior motorsports. So that was a factor that went into things. Like, it's there, but I don't know if it's there just yet. But I know
I feel like they haven't come that far yet.
Right, they haven't come that far just yet. Now, if he gets a top 10, I do think things change for that team. I really do. And plus, he's got Rodney Childers. I mean, you can't go wrong with him. Probably one of the best crew chiefs in the garage, easily. But I don't know if it's this weekend. Like I said, it's, he finished second last year, but I wouldn't say that's indicative of where he was running the whole race. I think there was an untimely caution came out. He kind of got a little bit of luck, but that's not taking any credit away with him as a race car driver. I think he's good at these tracks. I mean, there is no doubt about it. But I'm going to say no.
Okay, no, I agree with that. And I think in terms of betting on someone from SHR, especially someone who, we know Josh Berry has the potential and definitely has the short track speed, but I think it kind of falls into the category, like we mentioned before with Kyle Busch, in terms of winning races for RCR this season. Need to be proven. Need to have it proven to us first in order to then say, okay, now it's time to throw some units on a driver like this. Another prop bet that I want to talk about with you here is in the group winners tab under driver props. Group D winner right now, we have 4 drivers in this one. It's going to be Ross Chastain at plus 180, Joey Logano at plus 180 as well, Bubba Wallace plus 350, and Alex Bowman at plus 450. I like this one. This is 4 names we've talked about already on this show, and I know who I'm picking in this one. To see Alex Bowman at plus 450, which is surrounded by drivers Bubba Wallace at plus 350. Granted, he's a Toyota, but hasn't had that much results to show for it.
Alex Bowman, like we said, we were all in on him Bowman going all in on the Group D winner. So yes, on that one.
Let's go. I think that might be one of my favorite plays in terms of all of the ones that we've given out so far, just because of the value it comes with it, right? Like, the other drivers may finish better than him, which ultimately would have us lose the group bets, because that's how that works. It's going to be the highest finisher within the group. But with the value that's there, I just think it's worth it to be betting on someone like Alex Bowman, who has had, maybe not the most consistent finishes at this track, but definitely has shown more strengths than weaknesses in terms of the other drivers around him. So from there, in terms of your favorite plays that you gave out, or maybe haven't mentioned yet, is there anything that stands out to you where you're like, okay, this is something I'm definitely putting my money on heading into this one at Richmond?
Okay, so last summer, Ryan Preece, we have not mentioned anything about Ryan Preece, top 5. I'm going to say put your money on him as another top 5. I mean, he's a good short track racer, flat track, right? Loves New Hampshire. I don't think that last summer's race was kind of a fluke. I think he was really happy with his car from what I was hearing last summer. So I like that. I mean, Preece just as put money on top 5, go for it. I think on him for the betting line was really good. I mean, it's not going to hurt you for a top 5. If you bet him to win, I don't think you should do that. I mean, you'd walk away with a lot of money if you won, but I do like that though, and I
think he's sneaky too. Like something, exactly.
Yeah.
the value he
I mean,
brings, not many people will think about.
right. Absolutely. So, also know the last one I'll say is Bubba. I mean, do I think Bubba's going to win? No. Do I think Bubba can rip off the top five? Absolutely. Like I said, he ran pretty good here in summertime last year, and he's got a 23XI setup. I don't think you can really go wrong he could sneak in a top five. Does he do it? I don't know, but for my value, sure, I'll throw the top five on him. So
I like it. And just to clarify there, or to confirm rather, Ryan Preece is plus 1,200 for that top five too. So I that's something where
I knew.
yeah.
Yeah, see, I knew that's good. I knew that was like, yeah, it was around that. I was like, I'll take that. But no, it's definitely something I would put your money on. Yeah.
Definitely. I think the track fits his driving style. Bubba as well, showed speed early in that race. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was pit road struggles too. If I'm not mistaken, that ruined his finish the last time we were here. I remember him leading the laps, like you said, early in that race, and he is plus 400 for a top five as well. One of my favorite plays, I think, just Truex Jr. for a top three. It's plus 170. I think being all in on Truex, the value isn't crazy, plus 170, and it is for top three. But with someone that is my favorite going into this one is MTJ. Is that something where you're saying the value's not that greatest, but we do believe in Truex Jr. to get that done?
I think that is almost a guarantee. Unless some chaotic thing happens, I would almost guarantee that. The top three for Truex and plus one, yeah, I would put money on that one for sure. That one is a solid lock. I mean, just the statistics, why not? Just go for it. I mean, that is one that's for your value. I mean, you have to bet a little bit higher to get some payout, but I would definitely do it. That's one that I would definitely look at for sure. So,
awesome.
the one that I saw that it did stick out a little bit to me, Tyler Reddick. I know it's like he's plus 400, but again, a Toyota, a 23XI. I looked at his statistics between when he went to RCR to 23XI. Don't let the finishes fool you. He's been there. So again, it's a Toyota sponsored race. I don't think we've mentioned much about him. I wouldn't count him out either for top three. I wouldn't say, but top five plus 190. I would say it's a little bit of a risk, but I would be betting to do it. It's coming off the momentum from Coda.
Exactly. That was what I was going to mention too, and especially momentum from Phoenix too, right? Like he led most of that race. He was coming off a loss in Vegas, finished second to Kyle Larson, and then go to Phoenix. Looks to be the most dominant car until Christopher Bell drives through the field there. I like the Tyler Reddick play. I think, although we're now mentioning him here at the end, I think it's something to consider. And that's just sometimes sort of how it goes. We have to go through the entire board and see what drivers stand out. Maybe something comes to us last minute there. And I think Tyler Reddick is a force to be reckoned with in this one. I think maybe the reason why he doesn't pop off in our minds right away is because this isn't, I feel like, his type of racetrack. Like, I feel like I was a little bit surprised to see him fare as well as he did at Phoenix specifically. I don't think of Tyler Reddick as a short track racer, and maybe this isn't the shortest track, but intermediate style of a driver there. But I definitely do agree in this one. I think the plus 190 for a top five is good value for a Toyota driver in a Toyota race at night. All things considered, there, I love Tyler Reddick for those reasons. I think, like you said, everything goes to his favor in this one. And I think the biggest thing we talk about favorite plays and insights and betting strategies, with it being a Toyota sponsored race. What was the last Toyota sponsored race? At least the one that I can remember was Sonoma of last year. Toyota's dominated. So I think that's something to consider.
Truex. It was a Truex that won it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Road course. Yeah. I mean,
isn't he in the Toyota? He's in the Toyota car for this weekend too. The Toyota owners or auto.
Yeah,
is it? I think so.
Yeah, they're just about an hour west of me, the Auto Owners Insurance. Yeah, I love them. I'm actually looking at their car right now. My son's diecast is in front of me in his collection. So I'm looking at the car. I've been looking at it the whole time. So I'm like, you know what? And when I was there in 2019, he won in that car. So there you go.
Nice. Let's go. So all signs pointing towards Toyota in this one. Michael, thanks for joining us. Yeah, this was an awesome breakdown. Appreciate you coming on. In terms of, where could people find you to, see if you have any more insight throughout the week or any more of the NASCAR content and the great fan that you are. Where can they find some of you and your stuff at?
I just follow me on Twitter at Mikey2082. I mean, that's, pretty active on there. I love being on there. Yeah, usually like to tweet out during, I'll give you my picks on Sundays usually. I'll usually put something out in the week, what I like when the books open up. But Sunday, I usually give you my winner, and then I'll give you my top 5.
Awesome. So everyone be sure to follow him, check in on all of his content there. And is there any racetracks or races you're going to so far this season that you may know of, if we should keep an eye out for you at the track?
Yeah, so far in Michigan, we're playing the Bristol Night Race.
Well, I appreciate you coming on once again. Thank you very much for joining us as we went through the gears and previewed everything for the Richmond race this weekend. And be sure to tune in, everyone, to Michael's content there. And, best of luck for the race this weekend.
Okay, thank you. You too. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
And thanks so much again for Michael Palmer for joining the show. I really had a great time talking with him, and I thought he was able to provide some really valuable insight, especially since he's been to Richmond before and seen the cars live on track himself. Reminder, you can follow him at Mikey2082 on X/Twitter there, and be sure to do so as he's providing some great content for NASCAR and NASCAR betting as well. And if you are tuning in right now, be sure you stay tuned to the Front Stretch Podcast Network, as they'll be providing you with the Stock Car Scoop right after Richmond Raceway, after some of our bets hit big, hopefully, and we'll see how some drivers did. They'll be able to break down everything you guys need, whether it's before the race or after. Front Stretch Podcast Network is where you want to be to get the most out of your NASCAR content and coverage there as well. So you can follow me at Tino Pattigno across all social media platforms as we continue to have the show each and every week. I appreciate everyone's support, and be sure to tune in to the next week as we go through the gears.